So very typical late in the stranding season, we start getting into the loggerheads, bigger, more robust animals. So these are all loggers here on this blue tarp or whatever it is, blanket. And then we have one Ridley's, which is a very, very late Ridley's stranding. We're not even sure if this animal's alive, but we're not going to give up on it. So big, what we like to call big juicy loggers are coming in now, and that's a really fun stranding to be involved with and try to rescue these animals.
Now you have a smile on your face.
I do.
I know it's really hard work for you, but what do you think that their prognosis is? I know you're not a vet,
Right.
But how are they looking? Do you think that they're going to make it through?
These guys were all very active. In fact, the smallest one, we got the smallest one on last night's tide. We were out here between 9 and 10. That guy tried to bite Donna, so that's a good sign. And then the rest of these guys we plucked right out of the water. So the water, obviously the water temperature is warmer than the air temperature. So we got them right when we could, as quick as we could. They were very active. They are as best as you could expect for this time of year. And I have a lot of hope that we'll have some success with this many animals. We do have variables that come together. We do check, every tide that we can this time of year. But then when we have these big north winds, it's all about the winds pushing them in. So we ramp up our efforts and we'll come in the dark. We have big like spotlights that we use. So you freeze one arm off and stick it out the window, and we're watching the rack line from the last tide, and then we're watching the actual water line. So they could be in either of those places. So once we find an animal, they're usually flipped upside down. We get them up right side up, and we just rescue them. We just pick them up, and these big guys have to go in the back of the truck. We cover them up so they're not going to get any additional like windburn or frostbite, and get them into this garage as quick as possible. The garage has a heater. We're trying to keep them at about 50 right now, and then every day they take them up 5 degrees. So it's really tempting to just warm them up, but that would be the worst for these animals. You got to do it slowly, just like you would with a human, but even more so with these guys. We bring them up very slowly, get their bodies going again, and obviously once they get to the aquarium, they'll be looked at by a vet and see if there's any other issues here. Well, right now they're going to the New England Aquarium. This has been a fairly big year. I believe we're like 500 Cape Wide, 550 plus. That number's always changing, but that's a lot of animals, so I'm not sure if they're going to need to ship these guys down. I was just talking to the Mass Audubon about that, and these guys take a lot of space because they can't be together. So I'm sure they have limited tanks there, and they may need to ship some of these animals to other rehab facilities.
Why is it so important to rehab them before releasing them? Is it just the temperature of the water?
No, at this point, these guys have been here, bouncing around. They haven't been eating. They're dehydrated. There could be other issues going on. So we certainly couldn't just re-release this animal. There's going to be quite an effort put in to getting it back to a robust state where it then can be released in warm waters and hopefully reproduce. I mean, ultimately, that's what we want to do, is save the species. Loggerheads are precious. They're not as few in numbers as our Ridleys. As we know, our Ridleys is the rarest in the world. So when we have these events where there's so few Ridleys, and they're all about the same age, we're actually holding a whole generation in our hands, and that's going to make a big effect on the population. Not that our loggers aren't as important. Those are really amazing animals, also precious and rare, and we need to put the effort out for those guys as well.
Do we know why they strand?
They get stuck in the Cape Cod Bay. They go towards the warmer gradient of water, so that it's a new phenomenon here, and they get stuck in there, and their way that their biology is, they're not going to go against the cold water temperatures to go up and around Race Point. So these are younger animals. That's very typical of younger animals. There's high mortality in juvenile animals, and they get stuck in there, and then they just go into shore because that's where the warmer water is, and they're cold-blooded. So as the temperature goes lower and lower, they become less even able to help themselves. So it's sort of a vicious cycle. When we have turtles, people say that to me a lot. Oh no, you're right. That's too bad. There's so many. You're getting so many turtles this year, and I'm like, no, it's good, because if we don't get them, they're not going to make it. They're in the water. If they're in our Cape Cod Bay this time of year, they're not going to make it unless we get them as quick as possible. So I think it's a good thing when we get them off the beach. This is our battery recharging. This is what gets us through July.
So
Absolutely.
This is what you guys work for to be out here with
Yeah,
nature.
I
and
would
help out.
pay to do this. This is the best time of the year is doing this, helping these guys out. Fall is beautiful on the Cape, and you know, we go to school for biology, and like I ended up running this beach, and it's a lot of, as you say, policy and beach closures, and ultimately, you know, this is back to my roots. It's very exciting. Still alive, guys. So we hit a seagull after the eye on the other side. I want to get it in the car. Who wants it on his lap? Who's in front? Come in.
I'll do it.
Okay. Birthday girl.
We do have a number of volunteers. They have to be able to go out, like I said, in the middle of the night and help us out. Takes a lot of eyes. The more eyes, the better.
Why the middle of the night?
Well, it all depends on the tide. Yeah, so we go out after the high tide. So I can't control that.
That's too bad.
I know.
So what time, when you say the middle of the night, we're talking, you guys are going out, what time?
Well, tonight the tide's is 8 something, so we'll be going out after that tide, and that takes a couple hours to
And
do the whole
it's
beach.
been pretty windy out there
Yeah.
the last few days.
Oh, it's so fun out there in a storm. Yeah, it's just crazy, and the wind's just coming right off the water. You know, the seas are way up, foam's everywhere. Yeah, it's good
Someone
stuff
finds a stranded sea turtle.
of any sort. Yep.
What do they do and what should they not do?
Thank you for that question. I get that a lot. That's an excellent question. You need to get that animal above the tide line so we don't lose it back to the sea. We don't want citizens to just pick them up. They don't know not to keep them cool and so forth. So we want them to leave them where they are, cover them with seaweed, put like a stake or a piece of wood or something so that there is a visual for professional staff to come get it. And then you call, if it's Sandy Neck, certainly call us, but the number is the Mass Audubon and Well Fleet. They have a turtle stranding network, and they will be all over that. But again, pull it up, get it covered with seaweed so it doesn't get frostbite. Make sure we can find it, because when they're covered with seaweed, they're hard to find. Buoys are a wonderful thing. Sticking a buoy in the ground, it's hard to miss a buoy, and then give us a call.
Wonderful. What is the biggest thing that people want to do?
They want to warm them up. No. Can't warm them up.
If you warm them up too fast, could it harm them health-wise?
Certainly, their organs could be jeopardized. Also, all the bugs, all the bacteria and stuff get revved up too quickly, and then you're getting into all of those additional issues, which may make it impossible to rehab an animal. So it's got to be slow. You don't take a human, that's been in a hypothermic situation and warm them up, and this is a whole different biology, but same sort of concept. You got to go slow with that.
I've been watching everything that's been going on today, and I've been noticing that it takes a lot of blankets, a lot of foam padding. Right. Now, do you guys accept donations of these items?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the towels that we all have are from last year. We had so many, and they kept coming and coming, and so then we boxed them all up, and we got off to a good start this year. I'd have to go see what our towel regime is like and make sure we have enough of them. But we always need towels. Foam is, now that we're getting into loggerheads, the foam is always the hardest to get. So right now we're probably set for towels, but the foam padding, because loggerheads really need to have that cushioning underneath them, and it's hard to get the foam.
Wonderful. What do you think is the most challenging part of rescuing and watching out for sea turtle strandings?
It's days like this. I mean, most days when the air temperature is 40 or even into the low 30s, you have a much higher survivorship, and people are more inclined to go out, and we will send people out. But now we're beyond, where we're very uncomfortable in asking anyone to go out and walk for turtles. The staff, myself, and others will spot check like we did, but people, some of our volunteers were out. I was picking up dead turtles in Brewster this morning, and people are just really concerned and are willing to help. And with today's clothing, it's just layers, and you can keep warm, but it's really hard to ask people to do it. Between the snow and the cold, and the surf is giant on Cape Cod Bay. It's not easy. So we want to be very careful and cautious. But this system will go through, and then it's supposed to be 40, 38, 40 for the next 3 or 4 days. And if the winds keep up, there are going to be turtles coming in. It's not over. It's probably, 3/4 of the way through the season. And then every time the wind goes north, northeast, you're going to get them here at Sandy Neck. This is an annual event. It usually starts the 1st of November, and it's usually over by the 1st of January. But because the waters are so warm this year, and the season's extending well into January, and the water in the bay is still 47 degrees. So it's not going to be over until we get to about 40, and then the last of the loggerheads will come in dead. But at 47 degrees, a majority of loggerheads are going to come in alive. And as I said earlier, our biggest year ever for loggerheads was 178. As you can see, they're a very challenging turtle to work with because they weigh so much. I mean, they average 40 pounds. We've had a couple of 95-pounders already. That's a pretty big animal to wrestle around.